Hello, friend. Let me ask you something today. Have you ever had feelings for someone that just won't go away? You've prayed, cried, fasted, said, God, take this away. But here you are, still thinking about them, still feeling them in your heart. I want to tell you today, God is not removing your feelings for that person because He's not finished using them in your story. So many times in life we are taught to suppress our feelings. We're told to get over it, move on, be strong. And while there's a time for strength, there's also a time for honesty. And that honesty starts with acknowledging how you feel. You see, your feelings were never meant to be a sign that something is wrong with you. They're not flaws, they're not weakness. They're indicators, little signals from your heart saying, hey, something's going on here. Imagine you're driving a car and the check engine light comes on. You wouldn't say, that light is so annoying, let me smash it with a hammer so I don't have to see it anymore. No, you pull over, take a look, maybe visit a mechanic. Why? Because that light isn't your enemy. It's trying to save your engine before it fails. That's exactly what your feelings are doing. Feelings are God's way of getting your attention. When you feel that ache in your chest, that lump in your throat, that sudden wave of sadness, it's not just random. It's a signal that something deeper is going on. Maybe it's a longing that hasn't been met. Maybe it's an old wound that hasn't fully healed. Maybe it's a part of your story that you tried to forget, but now it's knocking again, asking to be heard. Take, for example, someone who goes through a breakup. Time passes and everyone expects them to be fine now, but suddenly they see a photo, hear a song, or drive by a familiar street, and boom, the feelings come flooding back. And the immediate reaction is, what's wrong with me? I thought I was over this. But what if nothing is wrong with you? What if that feeling is just pointing you to a part of your heart that's still healing, still learning, still holding on to something that mattered? Feelings aren't the problem. Ignoring them is. We live in a world that glorifies busyness and toughness. We scroll through highlight reels of smiling faces and perfect lives, and we feel like there's no room for realness. But God never called you to be numb. He called you to be whole. You can't heal what you won't feel. You can't grow past what you refuse to acknowledge. So if you're feeling something deeply right now, don't be ashamed. It means your heart is still alive. It means you cared. And caring is never a flaw. It's a gift. There's a young man I know who went through a painful friendship fallout. It wasn't romantic. It was just a deep soul-level connection that suddenly ended. And months later, he told me, I still think about him. I still feel hurt. I thought something was wrong with me for not moving on faster. But I said to him, no, that just means the bond mattered to you. You're not broken. You're human. That pain wasn't dysfunction. It was evidence of depth. Some of the most compassionate, wise, and strong people are the ones who've felt deeply and allowed themselves to learn from those feelings instead of running from them. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're sitting in silence wondering why you still feel what you feel. Let me encourage you today. You are not flawed because your heart remembers. You are not weak because something still tugs at your spirit. Even Jesus, in moments of great compassion, wept. He didn't hide emotion. He leaned into it. Because real transformation doesn't happen when you force yourself to forget. It happens when you walk through the feelings, learn from them, and come out stronger, softer, wiser. And here's what's beautiful. Once you begin to see your feelings not as flaws but as indicators, you start treating yourself with more grace. You stop asking, why am I like this? And start asking, what is this trying to show me? Sometimes your sadness is revealing what still matters to you. Sometimes your anger is revealing a boundary that's been crossed. Sometimes your nostalgia is showing you something sacred you didn't even know you cherished. Don't rush through those emotions. Sit with them. Listen to them. Let them teach you. Let them soften you without breaking you. Let them make you more, not less. Because when you start honoring your feelings as divine signals instead of dangerous distractions, you open the door to healing you didn't even know you needed. You'll begin to say things like, now I understand why I had to go through that. Now I see what that heartbreak taught me about self-worth. Now I know I was never too much. I was just never meant to shrink. So today, if you're carrying a heart that still feels, Don't curse it, celebrate it. You're alive, you're growing, and you are being refined by the very feelings that once made you question yourself. They are not flaws, they are clues, they are teachers, they are grace in motion, and they're leading you to something deeper, something stronger, something more whole. Keep listening. You're doing better than you think. There are moments in life when we beg for release. We say, God, take this feeling away. I can't handle it anymore. Whether it's love for someone who left, pain from someone who hurt us, or longing for something we can't have, those feelings can weigh heavy. And yet, despite all the prayers, despite the tears, despite the late nights wrestling with your thoughts, the feeling stays. And you start to wonder, why? It's easy to assume that if a feeling lingers, something must be wrong. But what if that's not the case? What if that feeling is still there because God is doing something through it? What if He's not removing it because He's refining you through it? You see, we often want relief, but God is after refinement. He's shaping something inside you that can only be formed through the fire of those emotions. That longing, that ache, that constant tug on your soul. It's not punishment, it's preparation. Think about it like this. Gold doesn't become gold until it goes through the fire. Diamonds aren't formed without pressure. Clay isn't shaped into beauty without the pressure of the potter's hands. And your heart is the same. The feelings that haven't left yet, they are the pressure, the heat, the shaping that's turning you into something stronger, more resilient, more authentic. I remember talking to a woman who said, it's been over a year since the breakup. I've done therapy. I've read all the books. I've traveled. I've grown so much. But why do I still feel something when I think about him? And I looked her in the eye and said, because God isn't done using that feeling yet. Sometimes it's not about the person at all anymore. It's about what that person triggered in you. Maybe that relationship taught you how to speak up for yourself. Maybe it awakened the kind of love you didn't know you were capable of. Maybe it brought up past wounds from childhood you never dealt with. And now God's using that feeling to help you finally face them. See, if He removed the feeling too soon, you might miss the growth. You might miss the healing. You might walk away from the process before the breakthrough happened. And God loves you too much to let you skip steps that are meant to strengthen you. There's a purpose behind that lingering emotion. It might be building your patience, teaching you compassion, deepening your understanding of yourself and others, or maybe it's simply softening your heart so you can love again more deeply, more wisely, and more freely. We live in a culture that says, get over it, move on, be tough. But God says, let me walk with you through it. Let me mold you while it hurts. Let me show you who you are becoming in this very moment. Look back on your life. Think about the times you grew the most. Were they the happy, easy seasons? Or were they the ones where you were stretched, challenged, pushed to the edge of yourself? Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from the places where we feel lost, raw, and emotional. Because in those moments, God can shape us without the layers of pride and self-protection. We're open, we're tender, we're real. And that's where transformation begins. I know a man who still tears up when he talks about a woman he loved 10 years ago. He says, she changed my life, not because she stayed, but because of what her presence taught me about myself. That feeling never left him, but neither did the lessons. And those lessons helped him become a better husband when he finally met the woman who was truly meant for him. So what if the feeling hasn't left because God is still shaping something powerful inside of you? What if He's using it to chisel away the fear, the shame, the regret, and uncover the version of you that He always saw? Don't despise the process. Don't curse the emotion. Let it work in you. Let it shape your perspective, your patience, your understanding. Let it deepen your empathy for others. Let it increase your wisdom for the future. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize that feeling didn't destroy you. It defined you. It didn't paralyze you. It prepared you. It wasn't a punishment. It was a tool. And the very thing you begged God to take away became the very thing He used to bring you closer to your purpose. So hold on, friend. Feel what you need to feel. Cry if you have to. But know this, God is not removing every feeling because He's using some to build the best version of you. And when He's finished, you won't just have survived the feeling, you'll have been transformed by it. Have you ever tried to run away from your emotions only to find that they follow you? no matter how many distractions you pile on or how far you go, your heart still carries the weight of what you haven't healed. You may have convinced yourself that you've moved on or that you've let go, but deep down you know the truth. Some things still hurt. And that pain, it hasn't left because your heart is still in need of healing. Healing isn't always immediate, and it doesn't always look like what we expect. We want it to be a quick fix, a moment where we wake up one day and feel completely whole again. But real healing is a journey, and sometimes the feelings we're trying to escape are the very things that will lead us to our restoration. Think about it this way. Imagine a wound on your body. If you try to ignore it, cover it up, or rush the healing process, you might make it worse, it might get infected, and it might hurt even more. But if you tend to it with care, if you clean it and allow it to heal properly, over time, it will close up and become stronger. Your emotions are no different. If you don't let yourself truly feel them, if you don't allow them to surface and be acknowledged, you might never get the chance to heal. I think of a friend who went through a painful divorce. For months, she kept busy, work, friends, social media. She said she was fine, but the truth was she was avoiding her feelings. And every time she did, the hurt would surface in unexpected ways. Tears would come at the most random moments. Memories would flood in without warning, and the sadness would weigh her down like a heavy cloud. She told me, I thought I had moved on, but every time I think I'm okay, I'm hit with something I haven't processed. One day, after a long conversation, she finally said, maybe I need to feel the pain. Maybe that's the only way I'll heal. And so for the first time, she allowed herself to grieve. She allowed herself to cry, to be angry, to be sad. She allowed the feelings to come without judgment, without trying to rush through them. And as she did, something began to shift. She didn't just move on from the past, she healed from it. And through the process, she learned more about herself, her strength, and what she truly needed in her life moving forward. Sometimes the pain we feel is a signal from our heart saying, I need attention, I need healing, I need you to care for me, just like you would a wound. And when we stop running from that pain and start giving it the space it needs, that's when healing begins to take place. Another example I think about is a person who lost a loved one. Grief doesn't follow a straight line. It doesn't have a time. People expect you to get over it, but the truth is you never really get over losing someone. Instead, you learn to live with it, and over time you find ways to carry the love you had for that person without letting it weigh you down. But that's not something that happens in an instant. It takes time. It takes space to feel, to mourn, and to eventually heal. Your heart still feels because it's processing. It's working through emotions that might be old, painful, or unresolved. But here's the beautiful truth. The reason you feel at all is because your heart is still open. It's still capable of loving. It's still capable of being vulnerable. And that's something worth celebrating. I've seen people who've experienced intense heartache, yet when they allow themselves to heal, they end up becoming the most compassionate people. They don't just get over their past. They use it as a source of strength, a well from which they draw wisdom, empathy, and understanding. Healing doesn't erase the pain. It transforms it into something more powerful than you ever imagined. You end up stronger, more connected to others, and more attuned to your own needs and desires. God is in the business of healing hearts, not erasing emotions. When He allows you to feel, He's not punishing you. He's teaching you, shaping you, and guiding you toward the fullness of who you were created to be. The healing process might feel slow at times, and it might feel uncomfortable, but trust me, it is in that space of vulnerability that God can do His deepest work. And here's what's even more powerful. Healing doesn't always look like getting rid of the feeling. It doesn't mean the pain goes away completely. Instead, it means you find a way to live with it without letting it control you. You find a way to be at peace with the pain, knowing that it no longer defines you. You realize that the pain you feel doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It makes you alive. So if you find yourself still feeling something that you wish would go away, Don't be discouraged. Your heart is still working. It's still healing. It's still processing. And just like a physical wound, the more you care for it, the more you allow it the space it needs, the stronger it will become. Trust that God is using this season to mold you. Trust that the feelings you're carrying aren't a sign of failure or weakness. They are a sign that you're still healing, and that's something to be grateful for. Your heart still feels because it's still alive, and healing is happening one day, one emotion, one step at a time. Keep going. Your breakthrough is on the horizon. We've all experienced a feeling of loss, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or even a job or a dream. There are times when we have to say goodbye to someone or something that once played a significant role in our lives. And when that person or thing is no longer in the picture, it can feel as if the entire purpose behind it is lost too. But here's the truth. Just because a person is gone doesn't mean their purpose in your life has vanished. The impact they had, the lessons they taught you, and the transformation they sparked, they remain. I think about a woman I know who went through a painful breakup. She spent months grieving, feeling as though her entire future was tied to that person. And once they left, so did her sense of purpose. She thought, how can I move forward without them? What's the point now? But over time, as she healed and began reflecting on their time together, she realized something powerful. That relationship had purpose, even if it wasn't meant to last forever. The purpose was not in the permanence of the relationship. It was in the lessons she learned, the strength she gained, and the person she became through it. The love they shared wasn't wasted. The moments they spent together shaped her into a more compassionate, resilient, and wiser version of herself. And once she recognized that, she was able to let go of the notion that the purpose left with the person. She understood that the purpose was never about them staying forever. It was about what she became through that connection. Have you ever had someone in your life who left unexpectedly, whether through a breakup, a falling out, or even death, and for a time you felt like your whole world was shattered? It's easy to think that when someone walks out, they take everything with them. But let me remind you, what they brought into your life doesn't leave with them. The lessons, the growth, the realizations, the strength, it all stays with you. And just because that person's no longer there doesn't mean the purpose they brought has been erased. I know a man who worked at a company for years. He thought he was building his career and future, but when he was unexpectedly laid off, he felt lost. All those years, all that effort, all that dedication, gone. What's the point now? But as time passed, he realized that the job wasn't just about the paycheck or the position. It was about the skills he developed, the people he met, and the confidence he built. That job taught him leadership, perseverance, and how to navigate challenges. And once he understood that, he was able to move on to an even better opportunity, one that was a better fit for his life's purpose. The job was gone, but the purpose behind the experiences he had there remained. Even when someone leaves your life, think about what they brought to the table. Maybe they challenged your thinking, encouraged you to step outside of your comfort zone, or made you realize what you truly value. That's the purpose. That's the goals you carry forward. And once you accept that, you'll realize that you can continue to grow, continue to evolve, and continue to pursue the dreams and goals that matter most to you, even without that person in your life. The loss might be painful, but it's important to remember that the purpose isn't dependent on the presence of that person. It's in the growth you experience, the doors they open for you, and the strength they help you find within yourself. Think about it. Sometimes God allows people to enter your life for a season. They come in to teach you something, to prepare you for what's next, or to push you toward the next level of your journey. And once that purpose has been fulfilled, they might need to leave so you can move forward. The purpose remains. It doesn't end just because they're no longer there. There's a man I once spoke with who had a mentor who suddenly passed away. He said to me, I don't know what I'll do without him. He was the one who showed me everything I knew about my career. Now it feels like I've lost my way. But after some time, he realized that his mentor had given him more than just knowledge. He had given him confidence, a sense of direction, and a passion for his work. The mentor had given him the tools to succeed, and now it was his turn to take what he had learned and keep building. The mentor was gone, but the purpose, what he had been taught, remained. And in honoring that purpose, he was able to continue the journey. You see, sometimes we think that our lives will fall apart if a certain person is no longer in it. We think that their presence is the thing that gives our life meaning. But the truth is, your purpose is not tied to any one person or thing. Your purpose is something that comes from within you, and the people you encounter on your journey, whether they stay or go, are just pieces of the puzzle that help you discover that purpose. The people who come into your life bring with them experiences that teach you, challenge you, and help you grow. But they don't define your purpose, you do. You are the one who decides what lessons you take from the relationships, the challenges, and the triumphs. And even when someone leaves, you can rest assured that the purpose they brought into your life will continue to shape you in ways you may not fully understand just yet. So when someone walks away, remember this: their purpose in your life was never about their presence. It was about the transformation they sparked. And as you move forward, you carry that transformation with you. And in that transformation, you will find new opportunities, new people, and new chapters to fill your life with meaning and purpose. The person might be gone, but the purpose, the lessons, the growth, the strength will remain. It's yours to carry, to build upon, and to continue to unfold in new and exciting ways. When we experience pain, heartbreak, disappointment, or frustration, there's often a feeling of being stuck. We might think, why am I still feeling this way? Why can't I just move on? Why can't I let go? It's natural to wish we could push a button and suddenly be free of those lingering emotions. The truth, though, is that unremoved feelings don't mean you're stuck. They mean you're in process. Emotions are not something that can always be erased or fixed instantly. Instead, they are signals that something important is unfolding in our lives. Just like healing takes time, so does the process of understanding, learning, and growing through your emotions. Take the example of a person who has gone through a breakup. They might find themselves still thinking about their ex months, even years later. They wonder if they're ever going to truly move on. They might feel frustrated, thinking that their feelings are somehow holding them back. But in reality, these lingering feelings are not signs of stagnation. They're evidence that the process of healing is still unfolding. It's not that they're stuck in the past. It's that they're processing the depth of their emotions, their experiences, and the impact this person had on their life. The process of understanding those emotions, of learning from them, and of growing from them is what ultimately leads to real emotional freedom. A friend of mine went through a similar experience after a long relationship ended. At first, she was consumed by grief. She thought she was broken and would never feel whole again. Every time she thought about her ex, she felt as though she were being dragged backward into a place of pain. It wasn't until she learned to give herself permission to feel what she was feeling that she began to heal. She realized that the feelings weren't a sign of weakness or being stuck. Instead, they were part of her personal process of growth. She had to confront her feelings, grief, anger, fear, and process them in order to move on. She wasn't stuck, she was in process. It's easy to feel like you're not moving forward when you're still dealing with heavy emotions. Whether you're grieving a lost loved one, facing rejection, dealing with failure, or struggling with an unfulfilled dream, emotions like sadness, anger, or frustration can feel like barriers to progress. However, these feelings are not walls that keep you trapped. Instead, they are like bridges that lead you to greater self-awareness, understanding, and healing. The fact that you still feel doesn't mean you're stagnant. It means you're working through your emotions in a healthy way. Consider the example of someone dealing with a job loss. They may feel a sense of failure, loss of confidence, and fear about the future. For a while, they may feel uncertain about what's next, and the emotions related to their job loss might linger. But it's important to remember that these feelings are part of the journey. They're helping them process not just the loss of a job, but perhaps the loss of their sense of identity or purpose. They may feel stuck for a time, but if they allow themselves to acknowledge and feel those emotions, they can begin to rebuild. Those feelings are not a sign that they'll never move forward. They're an essential part of their personal transformation. As they work through those emotions, they'll gain clarity, strength, and a better sense of direction for the future. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Each layer represents a different emotion, experience, or part of your journey. You might feel that you've already dealt with something, but then a new layer appears, bringing up more feelings. At first, this can seem frustrating because it feels like you're going in circles. But the truth is, you're simply peeling back the layers slowly, allowing yourself to process each part of the experience until you're ready to move on. The fact that you're still feeling doesn't mean you're not progressing. It means you're allowing yourself to fully process everything before moving forward. Sometimes the process of feeling can be slow. It might take time to come to terms with something. It might take months or even years to fully understand why you feel the way you do about a situation. But that's okay. Healing isn't linear, and neither is emotional growth. There will be ups and downs, moments of progress and moments of setbacks. But every time you allow yourself to feel, you're taking one step closer to healing. A key part of this process is being patient with yourself. It's easy to get frustrated when you're still feeling the weight of past experiences, especially if everyone around you seems to have moved on. You might start to compare yourself to others and think that you should be further along by now. But everyone's journey is different, and there is no set timeline for healing. Emotions don't have a deadline. They have a process. Trust that as long as you're allowing yourself to feel, to understand, and to grow, you are moving in the right direction. You are not stuck. You are simply giving yourself the time and space to fully process your experiences so that you can move forward in a healthy, sustainable way. Think of it like a wound healing. If you try to rush the healing process, you might not give the body the time it needs to properly mend. You might cover up the pain. But if you don't allow yourself to fully deal with it, it might come back later even stronger. Emotions work the same way. If you push them down or try to ignore them, they don't disappear. They just come up again in different ways. But when you allow yourself to process the feelings fully, they gradually lose their power over time. It's a slow process, but with every step, you are getting closer to emotional freedom. In the end, unremoved feelings are not your enemy. They are part of your journey. They are signs that you are working through your experiences, that you are growing and evolving. Don't see your emotions as obstacles. See them as tools for healing and understanding. Every feeling you experience is a part of your process. So when you find yourself still feeling something deeply, don't be discouraged. Instead, remind yourself that you are in the process of becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient. You are moving forward, even if it doesn't always feel that way. The fact that you still feel means you are healing, and that's exactly where you need to be. In a world that often glorifies strength and resilience, there is an underlying pressure to hide our vulnerabilities and emotions. We're told to push through pain, to bottle up our feelings, and to keep going no matter what we're experiencing. We're often made to feel that expressing our emotions, especially the difficult ones, is a sign of weakness. That somehow, if we feel deeply, we're not strong enough to handle life. But in reality, you're not weak for feeling. You're human and chosen. Your emotions are not something to be ashamed of. They are a part of the intricate design that makes you uniquely human. Take a moment to reflect on the moments in your life when you felt deeply. Whether it was joy, love, grief, or frustration, these emotions, these experiences are part of what it means to live. They are not signs that you are fragile or incapable. In fact, they are proof that you are alive, that you are experiencing life in all its raw and beautiful complexity. Feeling isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you are processing, learning, and evolving. I know someone who went through a difficult time in their life. They had faced multiple challenges in a short span. Losing a loved one, going through a rough breakup, and dealing with financial hardships all at once. For a while, they found themselves constantly on the edge of tears. Every day felt like an uphill battle, and they couldn't seem to escape the heaviness they felt inside. They began to question themselves, wondering if they were weak for feeling so overwhelmed. Why couldn't they just be strong like everyone else? Why couldn't they just move on and be okay? But through conversations, they slowly started to realize something profound. They weren't weak for feeling, they were human. These emotions weren't a reflection of their inability to cope. They were part of the journey they were on, part of the process of growth. They were feeling because they were experiencing something deeply personal and significant. They were feeling because they were alive. And feeling was how they would move through the pain and eventually come out stronger, on the other side. What this person began to understand, and what we all need to remember, is that emotions are not something to hide from, deny, or suppress. They are a part of your design. You were chosen to experience this human journey with all its ups and downs, joys and sorrows. And within every emotion you feel, there is an opportunity for growth, understanding, and transformation. You are chosen to experience life in all of its raw authenticity, and that is something to embrace, not something to hide from. I remember another instance with a friend who had always prided themselves on being tough. They had faced adversity before and had always managed to push through, hiding their feelings behind a mask of strength. But then something happened that shook them to their core. They went through a challenging period at work, and the stress from all directions began to take its toll. They couldn't keep the mask on anymore. They found themselves crying in private, feeling overwhelmed by everything that was happening. At first, they felt defeated. I'm supposed to be strong. Why am I feeling like this? But as time went on, they realized something incredibly freeing. The fact that they felt deeply did not make them weak. In fact, it made them stronger. They were allowing themselves to be vulnerable, to experience their emotions in their fullness. And that vulnerability became the gateway to their inner strength. It wasn't about pushing through the pain without acknowledging it. It was about feeling it, sitting with it, and then using it to fuel their growth. They started to understand that true strength doesn't lie in ignoring emotions. It lies in embracing them, processing them, and using them to become a better, more resilient version of yourself. You see, emotions are a part of the process. Every tear you shed, every moment of frustration, every ounce of grief, or every burst of joy is a part of your human experience. They don't make you weaker, they make you more human. They allow you to connect to others, to empathize, to grow, and to heal. It's in these moments that you discover just how strong you really are, not by ignoring your feelings, but by embracing them and allowing them to be a part of your journey. Think about a seed being planted in the ground. For a time, it is buried, hidden from view, and it goes through a process of growing beneath the surface. There are times when it faces obstacles in its journey. Too much rain, not enough sunlight, or even the weight of the soil pressing down on it. But that seed doesn't break because of these challenges. It grows through them. It continues to develop roots, to push upward toward the light, and eventually it blooms into something beautiful. The process of growth is not always easy, and it's not always visible, but it's happening. Emotions are the soil that allow us to grow. When you feel, you are like that seed. You may be buried beneath your emotions at times, but those emotions are what nurture you, what push you to grow. The process of feeling, of truly allowing yourself to feel deeply, is a sign that you're in the process of blossoming into something greater than you've ever been. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the very proof that you are human and you are chosen to experience the fullness of life, the good and the bad, the joy and the sorrow. I want to leave you with this reminder. You are not weak for feeling. You are chosen to live, to feel, and to grow. Every emotion you experience is a part of the divine process that makes you uniquely you. It's part of what shapes your character, deepens your understanding of the world, and strengthens your resilience. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by your emotions, don't judge yourself. Don't tell yourself you're weak or that you should be stronger. Instead, embrace your humanity. Embrace your feelings. And remember, you are in process, and every feeling you experience is a part of the incredible journey you are on. You are chosen for this journey, and every step, every emotion is leading you to the person you are always meant to become. Have you ever been in a situation where it feels like your prayers are just bouncing off the walls? You're praying, crying out for help, for guidance, for a breakthrough, but it feels like no one's listening? It can be incredibly frustrating and disheartening to pour your heart into a prayer and feel as though you're met with silence. But I want you to know God is not ignoring your prayers. Your prayers are heard, every single one of them. Just because the answer isn't immediate or it doesn't come in the way you expect doesn't mean that God is ignoring you. Think about a time in your life when you've asked for something, whether it was a promotion at work, a relationship to work out, or for something you deeply desired. Maybe you prayed for it, day after day, and the answer didn't come right away. It's easy to feel like God's not listening when we don't get the results we're hoping for. But God's timing is not the same as our timing. God is not bound by our limitations of time and space. What we see as a delay, He sees as preparation. What we think of as silence, He sees as an opportunity for us to grow, to learn patience, and to trust in His perfect timing. Take the story of a friend of mine who had been praying for years for a job that she felt was meant for her. She had the skills, the passion, and the drive, but every time she applied, it felt like doors were closing. She became discouraged and started to question whether God was even listening to her prayers. She felt like the silence was unbearable. She spent months wondering why the breakthrough hadn't come, why she wasn't getting the opportunity she felt she deserved. But then, after what seemed like an eternity of unanswered prayers, she was given an opportunity that was far beyond what she had imagined. It wasn't the job she had initially prayed for. It was even better. The timing was perfect, and she was able to see that all the closed doors were just God's way of redirecting her, guiding her towards something more fitting for her purpose. Looking back, she realized that if she had gotten the job she initially prayed for, she wouldn't have been ready for the one that came later. God was not ignoring her prayers. He was preparing her for something greater. Sometimes the silence isn't a sign of neglect or rejection. It's a sign of something deeper happening beneath the surface. It's like planting a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't immediately see growth. There's a process that happens underground before anything begins to sprout above the surface. The seed has to take root, the soil has to be right, and everything has to be in place for it to grow. But even though you don't see the growth right away, the process is happening. Similarly, when we pray, we may not see the immediate answers or results, but that doesn't mean God is not working in our lives. He's preparing the ground, setting things in motion, and lining up the circumstances that will lead to our breakthrough. Think about the example of a child who asks their parent for something. If a child asks for something that isn't good for them, like a toy that's dangerous or something that would harm them, the loving parent doesn't give it to them, not because they're ignoring them, but because they care about the child's well-being. Similarly, God's silence isn't about ignoring you. It's about His wisdom in knowing what's best for you. He knows the full picture, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And sometimes what we're asking for isn't the right thing at the right time. So while it may feel like silence, God is still present, still working, and still answering in ways that are best for you. A great example of this is a time when I was praying for a major life decision, not knowing which direction to take. I felt uncertain and I wanted clarity. I prayed over and over, asking God to reveal the path, to give me an answer. For weeks, I received no direct response. But during that time, I realized something important. The silence wasn't a sign of abandonment. It was an invitation for me to trust. God was asking me to lean into Him, to deepen my faith, and to trust that even when I couldn't see the full picture, He was still in control. And eventually, in His perfect timing, the clarity I was seeking arrived. The silence was not an absence of His presence. It was a moment where He wanted me to grow in trust. When it feels like God isn't answering your prayers, remember that He's not ignoring you. He's either preparing you for what's ahead or preparing what's ahead for you. Just because things aren't happening according to your timeline doesn't mean God has abandoned you. He sees the big picture. And while we may not understand His timing in the moment, we can trust that He is always working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for our good. Sometimes it's about the waiting. Waiting can be one of the hardest parts of prayer. But waiting isn't wasted time. It's a time for growth, for developing patience, for trusting that God has a plan even when we don't fully understand it. It's in the waiting that we learn to lean into God's presence, to seek His will, and to prepare our hearts for what's coming next. God is using the silence to work in us just as much as He's working for us. Think of it like a coach who is training an athlete. The athlete may feel exhausted, frustrated, and even discouraged at times, but the coach isn't ignoring their struggle. They're pushing them to be better, to get stronger, and to reach their potential. The athlete may not understand why they're being pushed so hard, but they trust the process because they know the coach has a plan for their success. Similarly, God knows what you need and when you need it. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's shaping you, preparing you, and ensuring that everything falls into place at the right moment. So the next time you feel like your prayers are unanswered, take a deep breath. Trust that God is not ignoring you. His love for you is constant and His timing is perfect. Keep praying, keep trusting, and know that your breakthrough is coming. What feels like silence is often just God working in the background, aligning everything in your favor. You are not forgotten, and your prayers are not unheard. They are being answered in ways that are beyond what you can see or understand right now. God is not ignoring your prayers. He is preparing you for something greater than you could imagine. We've all heard the term closure. It's often thrown around when people are talking about moving on from a past relationship, a traumatic event, or a significant loss. We often think of closure as that moment when everything makes sense, when we can look back and say, I'm okay now, or I've let it go. It's that feeling of finality, of peace, of moving forward without looking back. But sometimes we get the idea that closure means we have to forget, that we need to completely erase the past from our memories and emotions in order to heal. In reality, closure isn't always forgetting. Sometimes closure is about accepting, understanding, and finding peace with what happened, even if the memory still lingers. Think about it this way. You've had a deep relationship with someone. It could have been a friendship, a romantic relationship, or even a family bond. Something happens, maybe it ends, maybe there's a betrayal, maybe the person passes away. And you find yourself left with a sense of unfinished business, a question mark hanging over your heart. You pray for closure, hoping for that moment when everything just makes sense and the pain finally fades. But the truth is, sometimes the pain doesn't just disappear. You don't forget the memories, the lessons, or the love you shared. Instead, you learn how to live with it. A close friend of mine went through a breakup that left her heartbroken. She had invested so much into the relationship, and when it ended, she felt like she was missing a piece of herself. She wanted closure, but every time she thought she had it, she found herself still thinking about him, still remembering the good times, and still feeling the sting of the loss. She thought something was wrong with her because by the world's standards, closure meant forgetting and moving on without looking back. She kept asking herself, why can't I just forget? Why is this still so hard? It wasn't until she took a step back and reframed her idea of closure that things began to change. She realized that closure wasn't about erasing the relationship or pretending it never happened. Closure was about accepting that the relationship had been a meaningful part of her life, even if it didn't last forever. The memories didn't need to be forgotten. They needed to be acknowledged, processed, and understood. She started to appreciate the lessons the relationship taught her, the growth it sparked, and the ways it shaped her. She realized that closure wasn't about forgetting him or the time they spent together. It was about finding peace with the fact that sometimes things end, but that doesn't diminish their value. This shift in perspective can apply to so many areas of life. Let's say you've lost a loved one. Grief can be an incredibly difficult thing to navigate, and the idea of closure often comes up. People might tell you that you need to move on or let go, but sometimes those words can feel dismissive. The pain of loss doesn't go away just because time passes. The memories don't disappear and the love doesn't fade, but finding closure doesn't mean you forget your loved one or stop feeling the ache of their absence. It means you learn to carry them with you in a new way, understanding that their presence in your life will always be a part of who you are. Closure in this case isn't about forgetting the person or the love shared. It's about integrating that love into your life in a way that allows you to keep moving forward. Think of it like a scar. When you experience a wound, it takes time to heal. The scar might remain long after the wound has closed, but that doesn't mean you're still wounded. The scar is a reminder of what you went through, what you survived, and how you've grown stronger as a result. The scar doesn't go away, but it becomes a part of you in a way that doesn't prevent you from moving forward. Similarly, closure is like a scar. It's a sign that healing has happened, but the past is still a part of your story. You can carry the lessons, the memories, and the love without being held back by them. Closure also means understanding that sometimes we may never get the answers we're looking for. Not every situation in life will wrap up neatly with an explanation. Sometimes people walk away without giving us the closure we desire. Sometimes we face situations where we can't fully understand why things happened the way they did. In these moments, closure isn't about finding all the answers. It's about accepting that we don't have all the answers and learning to live without them. It's about realizing that not everything in life is meant to make perfect sense, and that's okay. The peace comes when we release the need for everything to be explained and accept that some things are just part of the journey. I've seen this in the life of a colleague who had a difficult relationship with their father. He never fully understood why his father had been distant. And even after his father passed away, the questions remained. He struggled with feelings of abandonment and confusion. He spent years hoping for closure, wishing for some kind of explanation that could put his mind at ease. But over time, he came to a powerful realization. Closure wasn't about receiving an answer from his father. It was about forgiving him, letting go of the resentment and finding peace within himself. The memories of his father would always be with him, but he could choose to remember them with a heart full of understanding rather than bitterness. Closure wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about freeing himself from the grip of resentment and accepting that he had done the best he could with the circumstances he was given. The idea of closure also applies when we're trying to move forward in life, especially when we've been hurt or let down. Maybe someone has wronged you, and you've been praying for closure, hoping for some kind of apology or explanation. But what happens when that apology never comes? Closure isn't about waiting for someone else to make things right. It's about finding peace within yourself, regardless of the other person's actions. It's about choosing to heal, choosing to forgive, and choosing to let go of the bitterness, regardless of whether the other person acknowledges their wrongs. Closure isn't always about forgetting. It's about processing the emotions, learning from the experience, and allowing yourself to heal in your own time. It's about accepting that while the past will always be a part of you, it doesn't have to define your future. You can carry the lessons, the memories, and the growth with you without letting them hold you back. Closure is not an end, it's a new beginning, a new chapter where you can move forward with peace and understanding, knowing that your past doesn't control your future. In today's world, it can sometimes feel like peace is the ultimate goal. We yearn for peace. Peace in our minds, peace in our relationships, and peace in our hearts. But there's a misconception that peace means feeling nothing at all. That peace is about numbing ourselves to the world around us and the emotions within us. We might think that peace is about detaching from pain, pushing down our feelings, or pretending everything is fine when it's not. But real peace isn't numbness. True peace is not the absence of emotions or struggles. It's the ability to face life's challenges with a calm and grounded heart, knowing that we can handle whatever comes our way. Think about it like this. Have you ever been in a situation where you've tried to shut out everything that hurts? Maybe you've been through a tough breakup, lost someone close to you, or faced a setback in your life, and you tell yourself, I just need to feel nothing for a while. I don't want to think about this anymore. So you push your emotions down. You go through the motions of your day, not really engaging with what's going on inside. You might tell yourself that you're fine, that you don't need to feel the hurt anymore. But over time, that numbness doesn't bring you peace. It only creates a void. The more you try to ignore the emotions, the more they seem to surface in unhealthy ways. You might find yourself snapping at people, feeling detached from life, or even getting stuck in a cycle of depression because you haven't dealt with what's really going on inside. Real peace, however, doesn't come from ignoring your emotions. Real peace comes from feeling your emotions, acknowledging them, and then finding a way to move forward despite them. It's not about pretending to be fine when you're not. It's about giving yourself permission to feel, process, and heal. Real peace is the ability to walk through life with open eyes and an open heart, knowing that you can experience the highs and lows without losing your center. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and comfort in the midst of pain. I have a friend who went through a difficult period in her life after a major career change. She had worked so hard to get to a place where she felt secure in her job, only to be let go unexpectedly. The loss of her job was more than just a financial blow. It was an emotional one. It felt like everything she had worked for had been taken away in an instant. For a while, she tried to numb herself to the pain. She told herself that she was fine, that it was just a job and that she didn't need to feel the hurt. But as the weeks went by, she realized that the numbness wasn't bringing her peace. It was only making her feel disconnected from everything, including herself. One day, she finally allowed herself to sit with her feelings. She acknowledged the fear, the disappointment, and the grief that she had been avoiding. Instead of pushing those feelings away, she decided to confront them. She cried, she reflected, and she gave herself the space to truly feel the loss. But as she allowed herself to process those emotions, something beautiful began to happen. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, she started to gain clarity. She began to see the situation from a different perspective. She realized that this was an opportunity, not just a setback. She recognized that she had the strength to rebuild, to grow, and to move forward in a new direction. Real peace came from feeling her emotions deeply, not from avoiding them. By giving herself the grace to feel, she was able to unlock the strength she needed to move on. Think of it like a storm. When a storm hits, it can feel overwhelming. The winds blow, the rain pours, and everything around you seems chaotic. You might want to hide, to shut the windows and lock the doors, hoping the storm will just pass. But real peace isn't found in avoiding the storm. Real peace is found in weathering the storm, facing the chaos, with a sense of calm and knowing that it won't last forever. You acknowledge the storm. You don't deny it, but you understand that you have the strength to stand through it. You trust that the storm will pass, and on the other side, there will be clearer skies and a stronger you. There's a powerful example of this in nature. Think about a tree in a storm. The winds may bend its branches, and the rain may pour down on it, but the tree doesn't run away from the storm. It stands firm, roots deep in the ground, trusting that it can endure the challenges. After the storm passes, the tree is still standing, perhaps a little shaken, but stronger for having weathered the storm. Real peace is like that tree. It's not about avoiding the storm, it's about standing firm through the challenges and trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way. I've seen this kind of peace in people who have faced tremendous loss. One particular woman I know lost her husband unexpectedly. The pain was immense, and for a long time she struggled to find peace. She didn't want to feel the pain, but it kept surfacing. She tried to numb it by staying busy, by distracting herself. But the more she tried to push it away, the more it lingered. Eventually, she realized that true peace wouldn't come from avoiding the grief. It would come from embracing it. She allowed herself to grieve fully. She cried when she needed to cry. She shared her pain with her loved ones. And in time, she found that peace wasn't about forgetting her husband or pretending the pain wasn't there. Real peace was about remembering the love they shared, holding on to the good memories, and moving forward with the strength that came from truly feeling her loss. She didn't numb herself to the pain. She allowed herself to feel it, and in doing so, she found healing in a deeper sense of peace. So the next time you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, don't convince yourself that peace means numbness. Real peace is the ability to feel your emotions fully, to experience life in all its ups and downs, and to move through it with strength and grace. It's not about shutting off your heart or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. It's about being open, vulnerable, and resilient. Real peace is knowing that even when life throws challenges your way, you can still find calm in the storm. Strengthen your vulnerability and the ability to move forward. Peace is not numbness. It's the freedom to feel, to heal, and to rise above it all. In today's world, it can sometimes feel like peace is the ultimate goal. We yearn for peace. Peace in our minds, peace in our relationships, and peace in our hearts. But there's a misconception that peace means feeling nothing at all, that peace is about numbing ourselves to the world around us and the emotions within us. We might think that peace is about detaching from pain, pushing down our feelings, or pretending everything is fine when it's not. But real peace isn't numbness. True peace is not the absence of emotions or struggles. It's the ability to face life's challenges with a calm and grounded heart, knowing that we can handle whatever comes our way. Think about it like this. Have you ever been in a situation where you've tried to shut out everything that hurts? Maybe you've been through a tough breakup, lost someone close to you, or faced a setback in your life and you tell yourself, I just need to feel nothing for a while. I don't want to think about this anymore. So you push your emotions down. You go through the motions of your day, not really engaging with what's going on inside. You might tell yourself that you're fine, that you don't need to feel the hurt anymore. But over time, that numbness doesn't bring you peace. It only creates a void. The more you try to ignore the emotions, the more they seem to surface in unhealthy ways. You might find yourself snapping at people, feeling detached from life, or even getting stuck in a cycle of depression because you haven't dealt with what's really going on inside. Real peace, however, doesn't come from ignoring your emotions. Real peace comes from feeling your emotions, acknowledging them, and then finding a way to move forward despite them. It's not about pretending to be fine when you're not. It's about giving yourself permission to feel, process, and heal. Real peace is the ability to walk through life with open eyes and an open heart, knowing that you can experience the highs and lows without losing your center. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and comfort in the midst of pain. I have a friend who went through a difficult period in her life after a major career change. She had worked so hard to get to a place where she felt secure in her job, only to be let go unexpectedly. The loss of her job was more than just a financial blow, it was an emotional one. It felt like everything she had worked for had been taken away in an instant. For a while, she tried to numb herself to the pain. She told herself that she was fine, that it was just a job, and that she didn't need to feel the hurt. But as the weeks went by, she realized that the numbness wasn't bringing her peace. It was only making her feel disconnected from everything, including herself. One day, she finally allowed herself to sit with her feelings. She acknowledged the fear, the disappointment, and the grief that she had been avoiding. Instead of pushing those feelings away, she decided to confront them. She cried, she reflected, and she gave herself the space to truly feel the loss. But as she allowed herself to process those emotions, something beautiful began to happen. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, she started to gain clarity. She began to see the situation from a different perspective. She realized that this was an opportunity, not just a setback. She recognized that she had the strength to rebuild, to grow, and to move forward in a new direction. Real peace came from feeling her emotions deeply, not from avoiding them. By giving herself the grace to feel, she was able to unlock the strength she needed to move on. Think of it like a storm. When a storm hits, it can feel overwhelming. The winds blow, the rain pours, and everything around you seems chaotic. You might want to hide, to shut the windows and lock the doors, hoping the storm will just pass. But real peace isn't found in avoiding the storm. Real peace is found in weathering the storm, facing the chaos with a sense of calm and knowing that it won't last forever. You acknowledge the storm, you don't deny it, but you understand that you have the strength to stand through it. You trust that the storm will pass, and on the other side there will be clearer skies and a stronger you. There's a powerful example of this in nature. Think about a tree in a storm. The winds may bend its branches and the rain may pour down on it, but the tree doesn't run away from the storm. It stands firm, roots deep in the ground, trusting that it can endure the challenges. After the storm passes, the tree is still standing, perhaps a little shaken, but stronger for having weathered the storm. Real peace is like that tree. It's not about avoiding the storm. It's about standing firm through the challenges and trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way. I've seen this kind of peace in people who have faced tremendous loss. One particular woman I know lost her husband unexpectedly. The pain was immense, and for a long time, she struggled to find peace. She didn't want to feel the pain, but it kept surfacing. She tried to numb it by staying busy, by distracting herself, but the more she tried to push it away, the more it lingered. Eventually, she realized that true peace wouldn't come from avoiding the grief. It would come from embracing it. She allowed herself to grieve fully. She cried when she needed to cry. She shared her pain with her loved ones. And in time, she found that peace wasn't about forgetting her husband or pretending the pain wasn't there. Real peace was about remembering the love they shared, holding on to the good memories, and moving forward with the strength that came from truly feeling her loss. She didn't numb herself to the pain. She allowed herself to feel it, and in doing so, she found healing and a deeper sense of peace. So the next time you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, don't convince yourself that peace means numbness. Real peace is the ability to feel your emotions fully, to experience life in all its ups and downs, and to move through it with strength and grace. It's not about shutting off your heart or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. It's about being open, vulnerable, and resilient. Real peace is knowing that even when life throws challenges your way, you can still find calm in the storm, strength in your vulnerability, and the ability to move forward. Peace is not numbness, it's the freedom to feel, to heal, and to rise above it all. You said your story isn't over. 2/2 ChatGPT said your story isn't over. Sometimes life feels like it's standing still, and the pages of our personal story are written with uncertainty. We've all experienced those moments where it feels like everything is falling apart, relationships ending, jobs lost, dreams shattered. It can seem like the chapters of our lives are winding down, and we may even feel like we've reached the final page. But here's the truth. Your story isn't over. Think about it. Every single person who has ever achieved greatness, overcome adversity, or found joy in the midst of pain has had moments where they thought their story was done. But they kept going, even when they couldn't see what was ahead. Their journey didn't end in the pain or setback. It was just a chapter, a part of a bigger story that was still unfolding. Take, for example, someone like J.K. Rowling. Before she became one of the most famous authors in the world, she was living in poverty, struggling to make ends meet. She was rejected by multiple publishers, and she was dealing with personal challenges that made her wonder if she would ever be able to make her dream of being a writer come true. At one point, she could have easily believed that her story was over. But instead of giving up, she kept writing, she kept believing in her story, and eventually Harry Potter was born, one of the most beloved book series of all time. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning, and the next chapter was about to change her life. I once heard a quote that stuck with me: a setback is a setup for a comeback. Isn't that true? Every setback, every hardship, every unexpected turn in our story can feel like the end, but in reality, it's just preparing us for something greater. The plot twists that come our way, whether we like them or not, are often the very things that propel us toward the future we're meant to have. I have a friend who had her world turned upside down after a sudden job loss. She had spent years building her career, and overnight, it all came crashing down. And instead, a beam up our spirit, and she had her world turned upside down to the beam of criticism. She was devastated. At first, she thought her story was over. She thought she had reached the end of her career path. But instead of surrendering to the disappointment, she decided to take some time to reflect, to heal, and to search for what was next. It wasn't easy. The days were long and there were moments of doubt, but she kept going. Eventually, she found a new path, a path that brought her more fulfillment, more joy, and more purpose than she ever expected. Her story wasn't over. It had only just begun to take a new direction. Sometimes life brings us the most unexpected changes, and they're not always easy to navigate. We might face health challenges, financial struggles, or loss that makes us feel like the chapters are over. But the beauty of life is that it's not a linear story. It's filled with twists, turns, and seasons of change. Think of it like reading a book where every chapter is different, where some chapters are filled with joy and others with heartache. But no matter what chapter you're in, the story isn't finished until you've reached the final page. And that page is still a long way off. Think about the people you admire. Heroes, leaders, artists, athletes, anyone who has overcome immense odds to get where they are. Their stories weren't over when they faced their greatest challenges. They were just beginning. Every story has its ups and downs. And even when it feels like the worst is behind you, you're still in the middle of your own unique journey. You don't know the incredible moments, breakthroughs, and victories that lie ahead of you. I remember a time in my own life when I was struggling with a big decision. I was stuck in a job that didn't fulfill me, and I felt like I was in a dead-end situation. I kept wondering, is this it? Is this as good as it gets? There were days when I felt defeated, when I questioned if I was ever going to find my passion, my true purpose. But over time, I realized that what I was experiencing wasn't the end, it was just a transition. That season led me to new opportunities, to new people, and to a life that I could never have imagined if I had stayed stuck in that one place. That chapter of uncertainty wasn't the end of my story. It was the bridge to a new chapter that was filled with growth and discovery. One of the most powerful things we can remind ourselves in the tough moments is that we are still writing our story. No matter how dark the night feels or how heavy the burden may seem, your story isn't over. You are still in the process of becoming the person you are meant to be. Still learning, still growing, still evolving. You have not reached your final page yet, and that's a beautiful thing. The ending is not in sight. It's still being written, and the possibilities are endless. And here's the thing. Just because you can't see the next chapter doesn't mean it's not coming. Just because you're in a season of waiting or of hardship doesn't mean the story is over. It just means that the next chapter is being prepared, and when it arrives, it will be everything you've worked for, everything you've hoped for, and more. Remember that the greatest stories are not the ones that go perfectly. The greatest stories are the ones filled with challenges, resilience, and unexpected victories. It's the twists and turns, the moments of doubt followed by breakthroughs that make the journey worthwhile. Every time you feel like you're at the end, remember that it's just the beginning of something new. Your story isn't over yet. The next chapter could be the one that brings you your breakthrough, your new beginning, your moment of triumph. You have no idea what's coming, but one thing is for certain. Your story is far from finished. Keep going, keep trusting, and keep believing that what lies ahead is greater than anything you've faced so far. Your story isn't over. It's just getting started.